Okay, good morning. Welcome, welcome. Lots of people joining as we speak. We've just gone live. It's Tuesday morning, and it's time for the second session in this three-part series. So welcome, welcome. On the screen with me is Renier Vessels. Welcome, Renier. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks, Dan. How are you?
All good, all good. Oh, that fancy podcast microphone came into focus there for a second. Let's have another look at that. I think you just have to put your hand on it, and
Where,
it
where
will.
do I where do I take how do I take the blur away?
Put your hand on the microphone. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now we can see your hand and the mic nice and clearly. Okay, looking very professional. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody who's just joined us, 40 people and counting. Please let us know where in the world you are. Renier, weren't you amazed at the international audience that we had this time last week? We had people
Yeah,
from as far abroad as the United States. We had India, all over India. We had, I think, Madagascar.
yeah, and I see we've got Danielle Fairhurst from all the way from Sydney as well. So it must be a crazy time of the day there, Danielle.
Not as crazy as if they were in the States. In the States, I think it would be
Oh,
3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but in Sydney, I think it's probably 6 or 7 p.m. 6 p.m.
okay,
All right.
okay,
Once again, we got Iona from Bucharest. Great to have you with us in Romania.
yeah,
All right. Cedric's joining from Madagascar, maybe Antananarivo. It's a good test of capital cities here. All
yeah.
right.
I see Danielle says it is 6 p.m. So not as crazy as I thought.
Yeah. All right. We got Bengaluru. We got Aroma joining us from India. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome, guys. It's up to 55 people. So it's good that we are waiting a minute or so because lots and lots of people have just joined us. And Renia, we've been discussing over the last couple of days how we're going to handle this session. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a recap. We're going to take you through briefly what we did last week because most of you joined, but some of you might feel like you need a quick refresher. And we've got the downloads for you as well. Last week, if you joined us, you will remember that we did a simple financial model. If you didn't join us, you can watch the recording, which should be available to you, and you can sharpen up. And essentially what we did there was we did quite a basic financial model, a loan amortization schedule, but the most important factors that we covered were the best practices when it comes to modeling, the efficiencies with the keyboard shortcuts, and we also looked at the importance of transparency and documenting your model and you formatting your model so that it's clear and transparent and that it is flexible. Okay, so it's built with flexibility in mind. Okay. All right. There has been a request from Siddheshwari for the recording from last week's session, so we will share that with you as well. Arinia, did you share that with everyone who registered, or did we share it? I think we shared it a day after the actual session went
Yeah,
out.
but what guys can do is they can look for FMWC South Africa on YouTube, but I'll also pop the link in here. Um, so yeah, this session is essentially it's essentially basically preparation for the South African Excel Championship, but we made it an open session, so we really welcome everyone from across the globe. Thank you for joining us. But it's also just to get the word out there a little bit. And as I said last week, Excel Academy is one of our sponsors, and the guys Dan and Avi have been very helpful at helping us market the competition and also share some of their skills and experience because they are professional Excel trainers and they've been doing it for such a long time. So I'm also going to share the sign up link and the well, we call it a link tree to all of our pages and all of our socials. So please go and subscribe and go join us on our socials. And then if you want to sign up for the South African Excel Championships, we actually allow internationals to also participate, but then you can't be part of the prize winnings at the end because the finals are in person. But we do have a lot of finalists that do sign up to the South African Excel Championship and participate because it's so much fun. And the South African leg of the championship is not as much financial modeling based. It's more general problem solving in Excel, but using financial modeling based practices and techniques that you've learned would be very helpful. And I think during this case, or during these training sessions, what we aim to do is to, last week we shared best practices around things like shortcuts, etc. But this week we actually finalizing that. I'm going to show you a couple more crazy things in Excel, in modern Excel, and then I'm also going to show you a case and go through a case with you guys. Sorry for my voice. I'm a bit fluish, so I'm struggling a little bit with the speaking currently. But we will be going through a case together, and I'll be sharing the case with you guys as well, so that you can try the later levels yourselves, and hopefully learn a bit from it. But hopefully that's also good preparation for the competition going forward.
Fantastic. Kirinia, great stuff. We are definitely looking forward to that case that we're going to be going through with you today. But as I said, we are starting with the brief recap of last week's session. So here is the WeTransfer link. You should be seeing my entire screen here, and I'm going to download what we've just dropped into the chat. All right, so there's the downloads for today, and essentially it's pretty much the same as last week's downloads, but what you'll see over here, I'm going to open it up, and I've got two Excel files. One is from the beginning of last week's session, and one is the end of last week's session. And then we've got the keyboard shortcuts cheat sheets, one for Google Sheets, one for Mac, and most of us working on Windows computers. So let me open that up briefly just to remind you what this is all about. This is our cheat sheet. I'm going to go into full screen. I can use Windows and the up arrow to do that. I can also press Control H to go into read mode, and I can press Control L to go into full screen mode. I'm then going to scroll with the wheel on the mouse while holding the Control key to just zoom out. So I've got this in full screen. All right, there's the first page and the second page, and I can go back to my folder with Alt and Tab. There is the rate card in case you're interested in pursuing our full courses through Excel Academy. As Renier said, we do this professionally. We've been doing it for, this is now our 11th year. We have a range of 3 Excel courses, Excel 101, 202, 303. There's more info in the rate card. And if you want to chat to us, we can have that conversation offline. For now, what we're going to do is we are going to open up the file from the end of last week's session. All right, and remember, this is all in the build up to the first round of the South African Excel Championships, which is in 2 weeks' time on the 30th of July. So while this opens up, what we're going to do is there we go, it's open. Okay, so I'm going to click Enable Editing because I trust the source of this file. And what I'm going to do is just remind you that we can navigate between the different sheet tabs with Control Page Up and Control Page Down. And that's a very useful one because I'm pretty sure that in the cases in the championships, you'll actually be working on multiple different sheet tabs, and it's nice to be able to quickly bounce between the different tabs. All right, so I'm now on the Inputs tab, and just as a quick recap, what we did was we made sure all the numbers were formatted correctly. I asked you guys for what we should buy, and somebody said we should buy a house for $40,000. So that was the principal amount of this particular loan. We said it was 10 years, and the annual interest rate was 8%, meaning that the interest rate monthly was 8% divided by 12. By the way, what we did here, if you look at the formula, it says B2 over 12. What we showed you last week as well was naming the ranges. So if you remember, what we did was we said we should name this cell interest rate annual because there's the label, and then this cell, instead of being called B2, let's call it interest rate annual. But what you'll see is that B2 still works. So it is still, in fact, B2. But if we were to double click on that cell reference, and you can see if I hover my cursor over it, it says 0.08. If I double click on it and then I re-click on that same cell, it now comes up with interest rate annual. Interestingly, Excel has actually changed the font of these named references to like a bit of an old school computer font. Okay, and it does the exact same thing. It performs this exact same calculation, but it at least is a bit more understandable. Okay, it's easier to follow. It's easier to audit because instead of cell references, we've got named references. So that is definitely best practice. Over here, we said term in years is 10, and then the term in months is 10 times 12. And once again, instead of B4, we can just click on term in years. That same cell now comes up with term in years instead of B4. All right, and then the PMT formula, what we did was we built this using the function arguments formula builder. All right, so we said the rate is cell B3, which is the monthly interest rate. And instead of that, we can re-click on that cell and it puts in interest rate monthly. Instead of B5, we can click on term in years. Okay, we've got to be careful here because what it's done is it's actually said B plus. Okay, so let's just go in carefully and remove the B plus. And then instead of negative B6, I can delete that and I can say negative principal amount PV. Okay, so it's going to perform the exact same calculation, but now it's got named references instead of cell references. And I press enter. And remember, the reason we put the negative there in the formula is because with cash flows in financial modeling, money out and money in have the opposite sign. All right. Okay, so we just doctored the formula to put in a negative for the 40,000 so that our payment monthly is 485. And remember, what we did was we named all the ranges. We did that quickly. We selected all 10 of these cells. We used Control Shift F3, which is the keyboard shortcut for create from selection. And that helped us to quickly and efficiently and accurately create these 5 named references. All right, and we use those in our calcs, in our cash flow projection. Remember, we've got on in column A from 1 to 120. I jumped down there with the control down arrow, keyboard shortcut, and control up to get back up, control right, control left. So get comfortable with those control and the arrow keys, keyboard shortcuts. We call it the teleporter keys. And then we said the capital outstanding at the start of the first month is the principal amount PV, all right? And then we said the monthly payment is constant. Okay, so you can see every month here, it's equal to payment monthly. And then the interest portion is the amount that we owed the bank on day one multiplied by the interest rate, the monthly interest rate, because that's how anyone lending money calculates the interest that's payable on that loan based on the amount that they've loaned times by the interest rate for that period. Okay, and then the capital portion is the dollar amount that we pay to the bank less the interest portions. That's the 21864. And the capital outstanding at the end of the month is what? How do I audit this formula? I can press F2 to go inside, and I see that it's blue minus red. All right, instead of B2 minus E2, it's got capital outstanding at start minus capital portions. It's got named references, and that's because we're in table mode. What do I mean table? We went insert table. It's grayed out now because we're already in a table, so you can't insert a table. We've already done that. Control and T is the keyboard shortcut for that, and that makes it easier to work with this projection or any kind of data set in Excel if we work in table mode. What we did was we took the capital outstanding at the end of the month and we then brought it forward to the start of the next month, and that's why it's equal to that cell, F2. Okay, and then we performed the same set of calculations. We dragged everything down, or it automatically dragged down with the table mode. And by the end of the 10 years or the 120 months, we are on a balance of 0, capital outstanding at the end of the month of 0. By the way, because we're in table mode, we see these column headings here. So that's great. I can press Control Home to get back to cell A1. By the way, I can see all my named ranges. If I click on the drop down in the name box, there are my named ranges, the 6 from the input sheet, and then also table 1. All right. And the other thing that we might want to do here is to insert a chart. Okay. So how do we insert a chart? Let's have a look. Where would we go? Insert. We could go to recommended charts, and let's see what it actually pulls up for us. All right. You'll see what it's trying to do is it's actually trying to, sorry, give me one moment. Just opening my gate here. Okay, there we go. We can insert a chart, but the better way to do this is probably to select the specific columns that we want to actually put in the chart. So if I want to do the interest portion versus the capital portion, I can press Control Spacebar on the interest portion. I'll press it again to include the header, or maybe I don't even need to. So let me press it once and then press Shift and the right arrow. I've now selected all the data in those 2 columns, and I'm going to do a line chart, but let me go back to recommended charts. And there you can see that's pretty cool. That's series 1 and series 2. You can see how the orange line goes up that would be the capital portion going up and the interest portions going down. Okay, and I click OK. And now what I need to do is I need to just edit this chart. So I would need to edit the series. I would need to adjust and select the data and just go in and do the edits. I need to take an urgent call and I need to open for someone here. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my work. And in order to do that, it's actually a good time to hand over to Rainier, because Rainier can take things from here. I'm going to save my work by pressing F12 on the keyboard. And then I'm going to notice that I don't want to save this in a temporary folder. I'm going to save it in a Dropbox folder or somewhere that's backed up for me. So I'm going to go to FMWC session 1. You'll notice that I've created a subfolder for myself for session 1 and for session 2. So that's good practice just to keep things organized. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say financial model. Okay, 16, and I'm going to call it session 2. You'll notice that I'm jumping around this text over here, again, using Control and Shift and the arrow keys, and I'm going to save it there. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and at this point, I'm going to hand over to Rainier to take it from here with a nice case study. Over to you, Rainier.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. So just to start us off, I just want to quickly share with all of you just want to quickly make sure that I share the right screen. Okay, let me just share my slideshow for now. I wanted to just share the link tree or the actual QR code. So just want to make sure. So yeah, just want to make sure that you guys can actually see the QR code. Because I'm not sure if my screen sharing. There we go. So yes, you can follow this link tree. So the easiest way to do that is to just take out your phone, switch to camera, and then just on the screen, just hold your phone, and it should pop up with a little link, and that'll take you to all of our socials, as well as the South African Excel Championship page and sign up link. As Dan said, we'll be starting on 30 July with session 1, and then a week later we'll have session 2, and then if you qualify, we'll have the live finals in Johannesburg at the end of August. So we hope to see you there. Okay, so let me just stop sharing and just also showcase what I did. So after Dan's session from last week, I actually thought about using some of the modern Excel techniques as well. And I just wanted to share with you guys how you can also do this loan amortization schedule. And so essentially what I just wanted to share is that with Dan's methods, it's a very manual method, and sometimes that is the method that I prefer as well. Depends on the use case, depends on the audience. Using a table mode is definitely best practice, and it's definitely one of the ways that I would build a model, especially if I want it to be robust and if I want the model to actually work across various versions of Excel. So if I look at Dan's formulas, the big factor that I pick up here is that if I change my inputs, like my months, then my table won't necessarily update because these numbers are fixed, right? So even though my formulas will update, my table won't reduce and won't retract and expand automatically. Sorry, like I said, I'm just a little bit fluish, so please excuse my voice. So then what I wanted to just showcase is that some of the new formulas, and we touched on one of them last week, is the sequence. So just to showcase what the sequence looks like before I show you the long methods, I just want to retract the table. It's not working now. But anyways, if I just showcase what the sequence formula looks like, essentially what I can do these days on the modern Excel is I can go sequence, and then I can look for the term in months that we assigned essentially, that we assigned a name to. And if I close the brackets, then what Excel will do for me automatically is it will spill 120. And the nice thing about it is if I change the inputs now, if I change this input now to 100 months, for instance, then my payment automatically adjusts. But what's nice about this is my sequence formula would automatically retract as well. And then what's also nice is well, so I broke this portion completely now, so apologies for that. But the formulas auto expand and auto contract. And that's the nice thing about modern day Excel is it allows me to actually do things like this. Now you can see that we've got a lot of NAs here because I attempted to do it using just the let formula initially, but I think the let formula, all I wanted to basically show is how in modern day Excel you can actually write out multiple formulas over a period. So if I just remove this month sequence, then we can just see less not applicable. So I just want to show what I did essentially, and then these formulas would just move up a little bit. But essentially what I just wanted to show is that I can basically go and create one formula that calculates the whole line for me. And then what that does is it basically with the let formula, I've got the ability to give something a name and then give it a value. And then the value can be a value or it can be a calculation. So how I basically wrote this is let me just start from scratch. Is if I go and say equals let, then the let so before I just open bracket, let assigns calculation results to names. It's useful for storing intermediate calculations and values by defining names inside a formula. And these names only apply within the scope of the let function. So when do I use a let? I only use a let when I know that I'm going to reuse values. And in this case, it's very valuable because I am going to use the payment portion. Okay, so I'm going to use the capital. So let's start with defining a name. So I can start with, let's say, Prince. Prince as principal, and we already gave it a defined name, but now I can assign it to a cell or a value, or I can also assign it to my principal amount PV. Okay, and the reason why I assign it inside here is because then within this let, I can use the shortcut PRINC as my principal amount. Okay, so then I go to the next one, and just to explain what I do after I've given it a value or a calculation, I give it a comma, and then best practice is to go Alt Enter just to put it on a new line, and the reason for that is that so that it's easier to read and it's easier to debug in the end, because I can see whether I've left out a comma or whether I've just defined a name or not. So with the let, this is the to me this is the best way to go about it. And what I can also do is I can also go and put in a couple of shift enters or alt enters, sorry, and then in the end put my closing bracket as well, so that I know that I'm not leaving that out. And what's also good from a programming perspective is to also put some spaces. So from a programming perspective, I would potentially put some spaces ahead of this and potentially just go Control Shift left just to go and select up to that point and go copy, so that every new line is at the same indent when I go paste. So that's just a couple of tips from my side. So if I want to calculate the payment we've already calculated on the input sheet, so I can just use another name for this if I wanted to. It's not necessary again, but I'm just explaining how the let works. So I could go and say that's my payment monthly. And then, but this could have been a cell reference or a value as well, or a calculation. So what that means is I could go and actually do the payment calculation inside this formula if I wanted to. So I could go PMT and then go rate as interest rate monthly, and then go number of periods is term in months, and then PV is minus principal. So in this case now I can use principal amount PV, but I can also use PRINC, which is what I just defined in let. So that's just, for me, it's important to keep things short. And that's why I want my names to be descriptive enough for me and someone else to understand what I'm referring to, but also not too long so that the formula becomes a very long formula and very difficult to read. So where this in my mind is a bit long, this might not be understandable to everyone, but as soon as you understand that that is your principle, or your PV, then you know what we're working with. It's important that we also don't use words or names that are already defined inside Excel. So if I wanted to refer to the PM payment as PMT, it wouldn't work because PMT is actually a function within Excel. And then just another point, best practice from a financial modeling perspective is we typically don't necessarily always go and say minus principal, because it's easy to miss a little dash or a little minus like that, but it's difficult to miss it if I potentially go and say principal times -1. So it does look longer, but it's just easier to pick up that that is what I'm doing to my principal amount. So you could go -1 times principal or principal times -1, but that's just a tip for best practice, just to make it easier to see what I'm doing and what my intentions are, and that my intentions are clear and sound. Okay, hope that makes sense. So I'm going to paste again, just to paste a little space there. So that's my payment. And then my interest portion, again, I can't use int because int would be a function. So if I want to go in interest, I would potentially just go like that, maybe. Or yeah, I could just go inter if I wanted to. But my interest is essentially my prince multiplied by my interest rate monthly. So again, I can use a name previously defined within that let formula to just make it easier for myself and not to have to refer to the whole calculation or the whole or the cell reference again. So that just makes life a lot easier. And I can see that there's no blue in here. So I can actually use less cell references with the use of let. And then the next one would be I paste a little space again, my capital portion, so I could go cap port for capital portion, and my capital portion is essentially my PMNT less my interest, um, and then finally my outstanding at the end of the month is essentially my prince. In this case, my prince, sorry, that is, so I could go outstanding is prince less capital portion. So this is just to showcase what the let function is. And then another little best practice is to say, okay, what do I want to bring back now? What do I want the let function to return? And usually what we do is we use out, just as a final sort of variable or final argument or final name. And then for out, what I would do in this case is I would potentially use the H stack formula, which is a quite a new formula, and it basically horizontally stacks arrays into one array. So I want to just put these things next to one another. So horizontally stack them next to one another. So use the H stack and say print. I want to return principal. I want to return PMNT. I want to return interest. I want to return the capital portion. I want to return the outstanding capital or the outstanding at the end of the month. And that's my out. But now let would still need a final argument because I'm without, I still defined another name. So now I can just go and say out. And the benefit of using this, I'll show you now, but the benefit of using that method is I can actually go and debug my lead formula. So what do I mean by that? If let's say there's an issue with one of my formulas, I don't have to send out the whole H stack. I could just send out the outstanding. So it still does all of the calculation for me, but it just returns the value that I tell it to return at the end. So that's the nice thing about it, is I can actually debug portions of it. So I can go and just use any of the names defined within my let formula and to ask it to bring back that specific value, instead of the full answer in the end. And that just makes debugging a larger formula like that a lot more powerful. So why would I do this? In cases like for scalability and expandability of a model, like I've showed, if I change the number of periods in a table or in a normal format, I would need to actually prepare, or not prepare. I would need to actually in the old methods, or in the old Excel methods, I would need to build the model so that it can allow for expansion and retraction. Where with dynamic arrays and with the new lambdas and let formulas, I can actually automatically make my formulas expand and contract. And as you can see, that is exactly what I endeavored to actually do on this side. So I just wanted to show that essentially what I did was I wrote one formula, and I'm gonna try and explain that to you guys in an understandable way very soon now. But I basically built one formula to calculate my capital outstanding at the end of the month automatically. So just gonna pause here and just see if there's any questions or anything that I need to look into. Just want to get my views working like they should. I don't work in Zoom often. Okay, so yeah, basically just to explain how this function works, and hopefully I can explain it, like I said, in understandable terms, and I'll share this worksheet with you guys as well, so that you can work through it slowly yourself and understand it as well. But essentially, when I see something like this, I always ask myself, can this be built in one formula? And the answer is yes in modern day Excel. So I just wanted to show that I used a little recalculation. If I just go into press F2, just did a manual recalculation just to make sure that my scan formula and my scan and lambda is actually doing what it's supposed to. But so I'm just gonna remove, or I'm just gonna hide these two columns just so that they don't confuse, just to keep things simple. But again, I used sequence term in months to just output the month number. And as I've said previously, what's nice about this is it can expand and contract automatically. So I can go to 150 months, and it would automatically spill to 150. And you can see with something like a dynamic array, it can also spill alongside whatever is expanding and contracting. So that makes it very, very powerful. In this case, I'm just basically calculating the actual payment amount. But what I did was here is I referred to the sequence to just say that if the sequence, and that's all I said, if value, then give me the payment. So all I'm telling Excel is, if there's a value in this spilling range, then give me the principal amount next to it. And what it's essentially doing is, it every single value that spills back as part of Q2 hash, which is referencing the actual dynamic array that's spilling, and you can see at the top there, it's showing me it's consisting of the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Every time there's a positive value, that would equate to true in Excel. So just to showcase what I mean by that is, if I go sequence and I go term in months, then I get values. If I want to define the actual, so if I want to convert that into true or false, there's various ways of doing it, but but yeah, essentially, if I go zero, sorry, let me just, so the number 0 and the number 1 would equate to false and true from an Excel perspective. But Excel also takes any number and that would equate to true. So I just want to see if this works. Just want to quickly try something. Yeah, so I need to do a value conversion, but there's a way to convert it back. So, but yeah, let's not get into too much detail now. But essentially, all I'm doing is I'm saying I don't have to go and say if it is a number or if it's more than 1. I can just go if Q2 hash, but I can also go if is number, for instance. That would do the same. That would essentially also equate to true for all of these numbers. But yeah, so I just wanted to explain that. But let me explain my scan lambda function. So it's actually simpler than it looks. And I'm going to explain, I'm hopefully going to be able to explain that now. So just want to quickly take a little screenshot just so that I can work back to it. Okay, I'm just going to put it on my other screen, and essentially how the scan formula works is, so scans an array by applying a lambda function to each value and returns an array that has an intermediate value. So what that means is I give it an array, I can give it any array, and it basically takes that array value and applies it to the lambda function. So breaking it up hopefully would make it make a lot more sense. So with scan, I've got an initial value that I can feed it. In this case, my initial value is my principal amount because we start on the principal amount, we're repaying it slowly. Okay, so essentially that's my initial value. If I start with a lot of scans, I'll start with a 0 potentially, because I want to start from 0 and I want to aggregate with something like a running total. That's how I would do it typically, is I start with a 0. But in this case, starting with the principal amount, okay, because we want to start with the 40,000. Then my array, I want to basically run this array 120 times. And in this case, I think we've set it to 150, but I'll set it back to 120 now. But what we essentially just do is what I do in this case is I say, okay, well, let's take the sequence of my term in months. So just to spell my 120 months. So essentially the scan function is going to run for every month. It's going to run for every month term in this case. And then my function that I apply, and in this case, with the scan function, we can apply the lambda. And lambda then wants us to feed a parameter. And in this case, the lambda starts with the actual accumulator. So in this case, the accumulator is essentially my capital outstanding. So my capital outstanding would start at the principal amount. So it would start at 40,000. So I'm going to call it cap outstanding. Okay. And then my value that I apply is then my payment. So essentially I'm going to sorry, it's my month. So my value is actually driven by the array. Okay. So the term in months, so it would be month 1, month 2, month 3. So I'm just going to call it MONT. Sorry, MONT, because the word month is already defined within Excel. Okay, so that's my lambda. That's the only two sort of variables or arguments that the lambda requires from an input perspective. And that's driven by the scan function because it starts on the 40,000 and it runs through the sequence and it feeds the sequence every time. So that's my month and my capital outstanding. Okay. So then now I'm going to apply the calculation. Again, what I do is I apply a let. So the reason for the let is just to make my calculation read more easily. So again, I'm going to add some spaces, and I'm going to copy those spaces just to make it easy for myself to write and read. And essentially what I need to now do is I need to determine what do I need to get to my capital outstanding. So firstly, I need my payment. So I'm going to go PMNT, and that's my PMT formula with the interest rate monthly, and it's my number of periods. So that's my term in months, and it's my principal amount. And in this case, this payment now, I can actually use I can actually, well, because it's fixed, I can just use my minus and my principal amount, right? Or my -1 multiplied by my principal amount. Okay, so that's my payment as previously explained. Paste another, so Alt Enter, and then paste another little space there, and then the next one is my interest. So my interest is essentially just my capital outstanding. So in this case, my capital outstanding would automatically adjust and would automatically move with the lambda function. So my interest would automatically calculate itself correctly running down. Okay, so that's my capital outstanding multiplied by my interest rate. Okay, so that's all I need to do. There, that's my interest rate. Then the next one, Alt Enter space, and then paste the spaces. The next one that I need is my capital portion. So I'm just going to go cap port, and my capital portion is essentially just my my payment, my PMNT, less my interest. Okay, so that's all I need there. And then well, finally I've got my my capital outstanding at the end. So with this, I could just go into a calculation, or I can actually give it a name as well. But let's just keep it simple. So it's my capital outstanding less my capital portion. And then if I see, I need to close the let, need to close the lambda, need to close the scan. And that basically spills for me automatically the whole the capital portion at the end of every single month. And you can see it runs down to a perfect zero. And what's awesome about this now is when I change my inputs, if I change this to 120 months, then my calculation would automatically adjust to after 120 months actually get to the zero. So my capital portion, my interest, my payment, every single variable automatically adjusts from the one formula. And then just to explain the difference between scan and reduce, because there's that's another helper function from a lambda perspective. If I had changed this to reduce, then you'll see that reduces an array to an accumulated value by applying a lambda. Sorry, I don't know why it's not showing it anymore, but the reduce actually reduces the value at the end. If I just go to the help function, it'll explain it again, hopefully. But reduces to an accumulated value by applying a lambda to each value and returning the total value in the accumulator. So it will only return the end value. And essentially, if I used reduce, it would return the zero, because that's the ultimate value that we get to. So the difference between scan and reduce is scan shows you every single iteration of your array. So for every month. So if I go again and say sequence the term in months, I would get my 120. So for every single month, it would basically return for me every single capital outstanding amount at the end. So yes, you can actually build this whole table with headers and everything with one formula in Excel, in modern day Excel. So that's my challenge to you, to try and attempt that yourself, to try and rebuild the whole table, including all of the columns and the column headers in one formula. And just a little sort of caveat is that you would need at least I think Excel 2019 for a lot of these functions. But if you have Excel 365 or Microsoft 365, you'll have access to all of these functions on the current channel. Yeah, I guess let me pause there and just ask Dan, do you have any thoughts or comments from your side around this? Are you back?
Yeah, sure, Renier. These are amazing. These are game changers. I think it provides for, yeah, as you said, different use cases. Sometimes you need to do it by first principles and you need to build it out. That's how I was always trained and always taught, doing actuarial calculations, full projections, full spreadsheets. But this is brilliant. This provides for quick, efficient, and transparent calculations and flexible. So, I mean, I love the way that with the sequence, that sequence function is brilliant in terms of catering for the different duration that there might be there. And yeah, I think it takes practice. I think with anything in Excel, learning a new skill, it takes practice, and you need to. And that's one of the reasons that that's the reason that we're running this session, to expose you to best practices and to these types of techniques. And the main reason that we are recording this session and making that available to you is that you can take the recording and use the time available between now and the Excel Championships to actually practice and to start to master some of these techniques. So, Renia, I'm just looking at the time. We scheduled until 11 o'clock. What are your thoughts for the next 12 minutes? What do you think will be the
Yeah,
best use of the time? We could
no, I've
start on
got
one of your cases, like for next
yeah,
week. Do you want to maybe get
yeah.
started on that?
Yeah, so I think we'll start the case quickly, so that we have more time next week to get into the more difficult things. So thanks, Dan. What I think you touched on, what's important is that, like I said in the beginning, sometimes we don't want to actually build formulas like this because our clients don't understand them, and it's easier to audit in a sense because everything is named properly. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to test the formula running down because the formula is written once. So if you're applying it over 30,000 rows, you don't have to go and check if the formula has changed somewhere, or if there's a fixed value in there. The formula is there, and you audit it once. But from an understandability perspective, it's still better to build out the functions with helper columns, right? And helper columns is essential in financial modeling as well because it shows my thought pattern, it shows my calculations, and it shows transparency. So it is a sort of a difficult thing to gauge, when do I use a dynamic array, when do I use one formula to build everything. Um, no. So Alexander, thanks for the question. Alexander said, thanks, this was really interesting, Renier. Is this the level that can be expected for the SA champs? No. Um, so if I take an example of one of my good friends and colleagues, Jason Weber, you'll see that Jason has participated on a global scale, on the Microsoft Excel World Championship scale as well. And if you look at what Jason does, is he doesn't build lambdas and scans during the competition. He uses basics and he builds out helper columns, but he's got very good sort of exam technique, if I can put it that way. So he uses basics, but it's definitely not expected to be able to do lambdas and scans, and reduce formulas, etc. With a lot of these, and I'll showcase this in one of the cases now. Um, it's actually helpful to take key, or to take basic functionality and master that and be able to apply that quickly. That should get you very far in the competition. Um, all right, so let me get into one of the cases that I'm going to share with all of you as well. I'll share this case after the session, because I want you to try it yourself as well, and I want you to try especially the later levels. But essentially, what we do as part of the global competition for the Microsoft Excel World Championship, and the South African Excel Championship is sort of one of the competitions in the lead up to the World Championship. We also have the Microsoft Collegiate Challenge, which is hosted by David Brown and the University of Arizona, for college students and scholars. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of competitions in the lead up to this to the Microsoft Excel World Championship, and they also have this Road to Las Vegas, and the Road to Las Vegas is essentially a monthly challenge, and I participate in it myself to try and, well, if you do well, you actually qualify for the Microsoft Excel World Championship. The reason why I picked this case is because it showcases what the cases look like typically, what a typical case could look like, but it's also a very fun case, and that's the idea around this, is to be faced with interesting problems, but problems that are fun to solve. And a financial model is not always that fun to solve, but this was definitely a really fun case. So just to showcase what the case is all about, the only instructions that Harry Siders, who's the case author, actually gave is to say, you thought it would be a good idea to sit back and watch the Excel Championship while eating pizza, ice cream, and ghost peppers. Sadly, that combination has led you into a walking nightmare. So this case is also called "This Spreadsheet is a Nightmare." Please answer the following questions, but be aware the data for level 5 may be left as text, shown as dice, or even Roman numerals. So some conversions will be in order. In level 6 and 7, you'll use the Void tab to outlast the ghosts and the aliens. You can't have a nightmare without ghosts and aliens. Okay. So all of these cases, typically all of the modern day cases, as part of the South African Excel Championship, the World Championship, the Leisure Challenge, etc., typically have bonus questions. So these bonus questions actually give you more points than some of the singular questions, but they could be a lot more challenging, or maybe they could be solved ahead of time. So just give me a second, sorry. So these bonuses would actually ask you specific questions like, which game in level 1 had the largest value as an answer? So that can be solved with solving level 1. Which game in level 3 had the largest value of an answer? Again, solving level 3 would actually give you the answer for bonus 2. So it's good and helpful to actually go through these bonuses ahead of time to know what they entail, so that you know when you can actually rack up these points. In the live sessions and in the sort of knockout sessions, what they also do is they only give the points to the person who solves it first, in some cases. So that's why it's helpful to know where your bonus questions are. And sometimes people will actually start with bonus questions. Sometimes people actually start with level 1, etc. And then you have questions. So you have the questions going down. We have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, 5, 6, and 7 in this case. So it's also good to be cognizant or aware of the sort of helper tabs as well. And it's also important to know that you can create as many tabs as you need to create in the run up to these cases. So if you need to actually, if there's not enough space on a sheet, what they always say is real estate in Excel is for free. So if there's something that necessitates another sheet, just create your sheet and continue, right? That's just a tip from my side. So it's important to know, okay, so we're talking about data. So from what I saw in the cases is that the data tab is level 5. So, and then 6 and 7 is the void. So that means if I go up to level 4, I don't need the data tab yet. And in the data tab, I can see that as explained in the instructions, we've got data that are potentially text values. So they formatted as text, so we can't do numerical calculations on them. They could be dice. So in this case, we truly have little dice in Excel. And they also have Roman numerals. So this might be very daunting, but the big thing is not to get flustered too easily. And then we have the void, and the void is literally a massive space full of ghosts and aliens, as promised. Okay, so basically, so you can see the void is a massive space. It actually almost crashes my Excel every time I zoom out. Okay, so we'll get into the data and the void in later levels, but being cognizant of time, I'm just going to show some of the first levels. and just explain some good exam technique. So being an Excel modeler, when I'm faced with a question like this, I want to find a model. I want to build a model, because the idea behind building a model is, if I'm faced with 10 of these, I can easily do it manually. But when I'm faced with 1,000 or 10,000, being a good modeler would mean I could build a model that can be applied across all 5 or 10,000, using something like a data table potentially to solve the question. And in this case, that's not what I'm going to do, because I'm under time pressure. I've got half an hour to solve this case. Uh, there's no quick and easy and dirty way to do this, according to me. Maybe you can enlighten me if you have a better way. But for me to actually build um, a lookup table to say one equals one, and being able to look up that and then go 2 to even 20 in this case, would just take me a lot longer than just to manually go 9 minus 6 is 3, 0 plus 0 is 0, 12 plus 20 is 32, 3 plus 2 is 5, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 7 is 9, 4 minus 1 is 3, 9 plus 7 is 8, no, 16, and then 4 and 7. And in the live sessions, you won't see the score accumulating like this. This is the actual case and answers. So it's nice because it marks it for me automatically, and it shows me my score accumulation. So it's nice to know that I've got them right. But in this case, under time pressure, I think the fastest way is just to do it manually. Okay. But the idea of this case is to throw you and to actually make you think like you have to do it in a special way, and you have to build a model for this. So if there's a quicker way, I'd like for someone to tell me if you find a quicker way. Maybe you can tell us next week. Then level 2, just to quickly show how I do level 2, and I can do this directly in here as well, is I can just go and say, well, okay, so I can see essentially what we're trying to do is we want to remove unwanted characters to reveal the hidden word. Now in this case, I can use the substitute function. Okay, so the substitute function would allow me to substitute uh, text, and then take old text and replace it with new text. So basically take that and remove exclamation points or exclamation marks and replace it with nothing. Okay, that would give me the word you. But again, doing it for every single special character, there are ways of doing it for across all characters and just to extract alphabetical characters. But writing a formula like that, if you're not practiced, will take you a lot longer than just doing it manually. And once you do that, what's nice is when you go Control E, um, you'll actually use flash fill. And flash fill will actually solve 18 out of 20 for you automatically. So that's just a nice tip, is you don't forget about flash fill. And there I've sorry, class. I've solved level 2. And that's just a quick and easy and a quick and dirty way to do it. But I think we're running out of time now, so let's close the session. I've got another session that I need to get into now. So please reach out to us. We did share everything, and we'll share the recording with you as well. Dan, thank you for your time today as well. I guess we'll continue next week, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thank you, Renier. As you can see, I'm in the car. I'm on the way to my next meeting. But that was great. That was a lot of fun. You did mention the fun word. You also mentioned flash fill. That's one of our favorite features, which has been added fairly recently into Excel. So don't forget about that. Use that Control E. And that shortcut, together with all the other shortcuts that we've mentioned today and lots more, are on your cheat sheet. So make sure to use that. You can download it and print it out and use it well, and share it with your friends as well. So we look forward to seeing you in the next session. That'll be same time, same place, same link next week, Tuesday, 10 o'clock South Africa time. Check your local time. And as Renier mentioned, we will send the recording to you guys. That'll probably go out via email tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So until next week, cheers for now. Take care.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.